If you didn't know, Earth's Dawn is a side-scrolling action beat-em-up that's extremely reminiscent of a Vanillaware game, the studio behind Muramasa and Odin Sphere. Unfortunately, Earth's Dawn falls short in many categories where those games shine. Before I get to all the negative, I want to talk about some good that Earth's Dawn has to offer. The game uses a fun and fluent dashing mechanic that I surprisingly haven't seen done this well in many games before it. It's perfect for chaining together attacks and traversing around the grid. There's also finishing moves that look really cool. You can perform unique finishers on each type of enemy, which is great. Speaking of enemies, those boss fights are pretty epic and a lot of fun, not to mention a real challenge to defeat the monsters. However, one insane missing feature is a combo meter. There's no combos. I was seriously confused at first. I'm still afraid that I was not seeing it somehow, so if you see it somewhere on the screen, let me know. But as far as I know, there's no combos. However, the game does tell you how strong your attacks are and when you get critical hits at least. The game features two different types of attacks, melee and shooting. I loved quickly switching back and forth between the two. However, unless you have a crazy strong gun, melee will be your main type of attack, which is fine, except you'll be hitting square a lot. This is where things start taking a turn for the worst. The gameplay is very repetitive. Basic slashing and the finishing blows I spoke of before really start getting boring after a while. These types of issues could have been solved if there was any type of gameplay mix-up, but there isn't. You'll be doing the same attacks over and over for a long time. Luckily, there's different skills you can obtain to buff your character on the battlefield, although I will say I found the skill and loot systems to be a bit confusing and overwhelming, but that's just me. As far as the story, I honestly stopped caring after a couple of hours, as I'm sure you probably will too. The overall premise is cool, but it wasn't executed very well. I was never truly engaged in the story, unfortunately. And also, in case you were wondering, all of the voiceover is in Japanese and translated into English text. And the presentation of the cutscenes isn't anything to applaud, just still images with text on the screen. This is where the $30 price point starts making more sense. While the visuals are pretty, there are only 7 major types of environments, and the overall presentation isn't great. It's not bad by any stretch, but after being spoiled by Vanillaware games, the muddy textures and bland backgrounds are more apparent. I don't want to sound too negative because the game's explosions and bursting colors had me impressed more than once. One thing that bothered me particularly was how zoomed in the camera was. The whole time I was wishing I could see a bit more of the world. This also caused problems during the battle because enemies are big and so are you, especially if you're playing as a guy. Combine a zoomed camera, big characters, and lots of explosions, and you get one very crowded screen. I couldn't go without mentioning this. Where's my Vita version? This game would have made a ton of sense on the go, just like Dragon's Crown and Odin Sphere did. However, there are 3D models in the game, so that might be a bit harder porting to the Vita. I have no clue how game development works, but I can't help but wish this was on everyone's favorite handheld. Earth's Dawn is obviously lacking in some areas where Vanillaware games shine, but it's also being released at a budget price of $30 and has a platinum trophy. There is fun to be had with Earth's Dawn, and if you're a fan of the side-scrolling action genre, you probably won't regret purchasing it.